Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. I know it's been so long since my last video. I think my last video was gender reveal for this sweet girl. Such a special one, and I'm so excited for this video because my birth was, I couldn't have asked for a better birth. So I'm going to be sharing that with you today. If you are new here, I'm going to kind of start off a little bit about myself and kind of just like the background of my births, because I have another baby. Yeah, I'm just gonna tell you a little bit about myself so my birth story makes more sense. So this is baby Wilder Lennon. She's so yummy. And she is our second baby. We have a toddler named Sebastian. You may have seen that birth video or birth vlog before. He is 2.5 years old. I had him at a hospital and it was a medicated birth, and it honestly couldn't have gone better. I had such a good birth with him. And for this one, we had an unmedicated at-home birth. A little bit of a background of how we got to the decision of having a home birth. This time around, when I found out I was pregnant with her, I really wanted to have a midwife, but I wanted to still give birth in a hospital. So I found a midwife group that did hospital births, and it was very much just like if I had an OBGYN. The appointments were the exact same, very short, very to the point. My midwife group actually consisted of like 6 or 9 midwives, and I chose one of them. And even though I did choose just one, I ended up not even seeing her. I only saw her once, and every appointment I saw a new midwife. I thought going the midwife group or midwife route, I would have a more personable experience, more holistic experience, more just not rushed. And it was the complete opposite. At my 28-week appointment, I came home crying because, oh bless you mama. I came home crying to my husband because I was so fed up that I saw yet another midwife. I just felt like I was another name in a system. I was just so fed up with my experience, and this is our last baby, so I really just wanted it to be exactly how I wanted. The reason why I wanted a midwife but still deliver at a hospital was because I was dead set on getting an epidural. I had the best experience with my son. Everything went great. A natural birth was not in the plans. It was not even an option, so that's why I wanted to go midwife group with through a hospital. After I was so fed up and crying, I was like, I need to figure out something. I either need to figure out a new midwife, I need to figure out a new birth plan, I need to do something. So after talking with my husband a lot and doing lots of thinking, I decided I was going to give birth at a birthing center. And as you know, birthing centers, they don't have pain relief, they don't have epidurals, nothing. So this was a huge change for me and a huge shock. It was a huge decision. It was something I really had to get in the right mindset of. I really had to learn about it, educate myself on just the woman's body, birth, on babies, on hospitals, and why people go the out of hospital birth route, everything. So I took courses, I read books, I watched documentaries, YouTube videos, just everything throughout my pregnancy to feel prepared for this. I decided to do a birthing center birth from the beginning of my switch because the birthing center that I was going through, it was actually just 1 minute away from a hospital, so that made me feel really comfortable going there because I would be really close to a hospital in case of an emergency. I think that was one of my worries of switching to a birthing center. Throughout the rest of my pregnancy, I had this new plan. I went to go see my new midwife, all that. And then just about, let's see, probably like 32 weeks pregnant or so, 32 or 33 weeks pregnant, I really had this deep feeling in my heart that I wanted to do a home birth, but I kept pushing it away, because I was like, you know what? The birthing center is only 1 minute away from the hospital. Like, this is safest for me. Like, I just kept pushing those feelings away, but they kept coming back, and I kept visualizing my birth and my labor at my house, and I could not shake that feeling. So I talked to my husband about it. I talked to my family about it, and they all were like, if you are feeling this way, then that's what you need to do. Like, you need to follow your heart and give birth where your heart is telling you to and not where your head is telling you to. So after lots of thinking, I decided to switch to a home birth. This little mama is wide awake and just kidding with you with how yummy you are. I love you so much. So I told my midwife that I wanted to switch to a home birth. She was fully on board. She made me feel so comfortable about doing a home birth and that they know when to transfer for emergency or to call 911. And we talked about the nearest hospital to my house. Like, I just felt really comfortable. And the second that I made that decision, I just felt so at peace and just like a weight was lifted off my shoulder. And so yeah, then we had a beautiful, beautiful home birth. This little one came early and she came fast. So I can't wait to tell you guys my birth story. So that's a little background and let's jump into the first story. Okay, so I have notes written down on my phone just because I want to make sure I cover absolutely everything and give you all the details. This little girl came at 37 weeks and 3 days. So she came just in time to have a home birth. My midwife only does home birth as early as 36 and a half weeks. So she came right at the right time. On February 27th, 2022, at night, I started to have early labor signs. I started to have the runs, if you know what I mean. I started to lose my mucus plug, all these signs. And I was like, are these early labor signs? I can't really tell. So I was like, okay, these might be early labor signs, but I could have a baby soon, or I could have a baby in a couple of days. I could have a baby in a couple of weeks. Like, it really doesn't mean much. But then around 11 o'clock, I laid down and I felt a little gush of water. And I was like, did I just pee myself? Or did my water break? My water broke with my son, so I remember that feeling, a really big gush. So this one wasn't. This one was just like a little gush, so I wasn't sure. And so I ended up calling my midwife. I told her what happened, and she said to use my amniotic fluid tester that came in my home birth kit, and then it'll tell me if it's amniotic fluid or not. So I tested it. It came back negative. She was like, it's not amniotic fluid. You're fine, go back to bed. And I was like, okay. And then the rest of the night I continued to have little gushes to the point where I had to wear pads all night. I was changing my pad like maybe 5 or 6 times. And I was like, okay, I'm obviously not peeing myself. Like, I'm not peeing myself. This is obviously my water leaking. Maybe I just did that test wrong. Maybe it just wasn't accurate. And so in the morning then around 6 a.m. I called my midwife again. I was like, okay, look, this is my water breaking. I was leaking all night and I went through so many pads throughout the night. So she told me to come in at 11 a.m. that day. So this is now February 28th that she told me to come in. So I went about the rest of my morning, and around like 8:30 a.m. I felt a little pop in my tummy and a bigger gush of water came out. So I was like, okay, maybe that was just the rest of my water breaking and it's the real deal now. Like, my water just broke for sure. So I contacted my doulas. I let them know the deal. They were like, okay, keep me updated. I went to see my midwife that day at 11, and then she retested with the same swab or the same type of test, and it came back positive. And then she also checked me, and I was 1 centimeter dilated. So my water had broken and it was gonna be baby day. Okay. Had to get a new card. Sorry if the lighting is different or the angle is different. So my midwife were like, all right, we gotta get these contractions started because I'm kind of like on the clock now since my water had broken and there's a risk of an infection. So they instructed me to do a castor oil smoothie, and that consisted of ice cream, 2 ounces of castor oil, and a raw egg. So I took that smoothie and that got things going within like 2 hours or so, and it also cleared me out, if you know what I mean. And then I tried to take a nap around like 3:30, but the contractions were not letting me nap. I was not able to sleep through them. They were getting a little bit stronger. I could talk through them. They were not painful. They were just uncomfortable, but they were about 2 to 3 minutes apart, but they were only lasting about like 30 seconds or so. But I let my midwife know and I let my doulas know. And my midwife around 4 o'clock decided to come over because that was the time that I had to take my GPS antibiotic. And I was supposed to go back to the birth center, but my contractions were just too strong for me to even drive because I kind of started to have to focus through them. So my midwife came to me and she gave me the antibiotic, and by then my contractions were definitely picking up. They were still about 2 to 3 minutes apart, but they were definitely getting stronger, and I had to focus through them. I couldn't talk through them anymore. So then things started to move pretty quickly after that, and then around 5:30 I contacted my doula and I said, I think you need to come over. I'm definitely needing a little bit more support. And so she got there about 6 o'clock and my contractions were picking up. They were getting closer together, but the intensity was still pretty steady. They were definitely stronger than they were about an hour before that, but they were pretty steady. And I was still having to like breathe through them, and I was still having to focus through them. And during that point, my most comfortable position was on my birthing ball, just laying down, and I was just swaying back and forth. And I had AirPods in and I was listening to just like spa music, and I was really focusing and breathing through my contractions. But I felt very, very relaxed during that whole time. Okay, so then about like 7:30 or 8 o'clock, my contractions were still pretty much the same intensity. They were just very steady, but my midwife was a little bit worried that I was going to go through the night with just steady contractions and I wasn't going to progress enough or fast enough. So she ended up deciding to check me to see where I was at, and I was at a 5. And she also noticed that I still had a little bag of water that was preventing Wilder to fall deep into my birth canal, and she needed to pop that. So that's what she did, and she popped that, and then right after that my contractions started picking up pretty fast. I also pumped before that too to kind of start to get things going. Then my doula also recommended that I labor on the toilet, and that was really comfortable. I ended up straddling the toilet and leaning over it onto a pillow, and I also had the TENS unit on my back. If you are planning to have a unmedicated birth, I highly recommend doing the TENS unit, because that was literally, I don't think I could have gone through labor without that. It was a miracle. It was magic. It was great. So highly recommend the TENS unit. And then I was laboring on the toilet for about an hour, and my contractions were very strong and very intense, but I was still feeling like I could handle them, and they were nothing like what I felt like was coming. So this is kind of the crazy part. I was telling myself like, okay, I can do this. Like these contractions are really intense, but I feel like they're going to get worse. And I started to get really anxious because I was like, I don't know if I can handle more than what I was feeling in that moment. And little did I know, I was actually in transition, and I was going to be delivering my baby within honestly minutes. So my midwife heard a few of my contractions, and then she was like, yeah, you probably should head in the bath or head in the birth pool, or you're gonna have a toilet baby. And in my head I'm thinking like, no, it's too early to go into the pool. I don't want that to slow things down, and also I don't want to use that as like my epidural or sorry, diaper change. I just didn't feel like I was having intense enough contractions, and I didn't want that to slow down labor. And I really wanted to use that as my last resort for like pain management. And so I just didn't want to use that too fast. But I just followed my midwife and I was like, okay, fine. And literally as soon as I sat down in the birth pool, I started to push. My body just started to push on its own, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like a lot farther along than I thought. And I was like, the contractions that I could handle and the contractions that I was like, oh no, I feel like this is going to get worse, that was the worst of the contraction. I'm proud to say that the contractions were not as intense and as bad as I anticipated them, and I was honestly able to handle them pretty well, and I was very proud of myself. So I sat down in the water, and my body just started pushing. Like I could not, I heard about this in all of my labor and delivery vlogs and stories that I had been watching, and everything that I've been prepping. I just hear like your body starts pushing, it's by itself. Your body starts pushing by itself. And that couldn't be like more the truth. My body just took over and started pushing. And so I started to push, and they're like, yes, yes, yes. Like I can't even describe the feeling. It's the craziest feeling. And I'm not kidding you. 4 or 5 pushes after I sat down in that pool, she was out. I went from saying like, no, it's way too early, like to get into the pool, to literally having a baby on my chest in 20 minutes. It was the most insane thing ever. I was literally in the birthing pool for 10 minutes. So I started to push. I felt her head start to come out within the first push. I don't mean to scare moms at all, but like obviously nothing's like glorious about the pushing part. It's doable. It's definitely doable. Women literally do it every single day, but the pushing was the worst part, or the pushing of the head was the worst part for me. I literally screamed. I screamed, get her the out, because I was so just like, ah! But to get her head out, it was, I think, 2 pushes. And I was not stopping because I was like, I need to get this head out. And the second her head came out, it was like the biggest sigh of relief. And her head was out within like, I think 2 or 3 pushes. And then it was a longer time until my next contraction. And then within 2 pushes, the rest of her body was out. And she was born, and she was all tangled up in her cord. They unraveled her underwater and then placed her on my chest. And it was the most beautiful thing. I literally had like this crazy, it was like that birthing high that people talk about. Like it didn't last very long. I've heard that people have their birth high like last, it could be a couple of days. Mine only lasted like 20 minutes or so, but I was just sitting there like, oh my gosh, like I actually freaking did it. And so I was just sitting in the birthing pool for a little bit, just holding her and waiting until she got all of her cord blood and the cord turned white, and then I delivered the placenta, and then we got out of the birthing pool. And the best part, this is not the best part, the best part was her, but one of the main reasons I really wanted to do a home birth was being able to just crawl into my bed after and being in the comfort of my own home during this whole crazy, vulnerable, amazing experience. And right after I crawled into bed, I started nursing her. My midwife was monitoring me, her assistants were cleaning up, and then a little while later they did her newborn exam. They did it just right on my bed. Like it was just the coziest, most beautiful experience. Her and I were great. My bleeding was normal. She passed every test. She weighed 5 pounds and 15 ounces. She was a teeny little baby. And yeah, then they cleaned up and made sure we were all good, and then they headed out. And then it was just us 3 home. My mom had taken Sebastian earlier that day. Then we DoorDashed Jack in a Box. We had Jack in a Box in bed, and then we crashed and went to sleep. That is everything. And that is my birth story. And I highly recommend, if you are considering a home birth, to watch the documentary The Business of Being Born, and that's just a great place to start if you are considering it. That is kind of what made me really think about it a lot more and really open my eyes to how just amazing home births are. And I truly had the birth of my dreams. Everything went perfect. Everything went absolutely perfect. I could cry just thinking about it. It went better than I ever could imagine. It's crazy because leading up to my birth, I was kind of second guessing it and really questioning if I could do this. But the day that it was coming, and knowing that it was coming because my water broke, I had no anxieties at all. I was very excited. I was just ready, and it was the most calming, comforting, that is my birth story, you guys. She sleeps all day long. She's just my little girl. Okay, so I wanted to answer a few questions that maybe I didn't already go over. I asked you guys on Instagram and you guys gave me some. One of them was, how did you get past the pain of wanting the epidural? I learned a lot about a natural birth throughout my pregnancy once I switched my birth plan. I took birthing courses, I just watched all the things and really educated myself on how to breathe through contractions and pushing, and how to manage the intensity, and how to look at it as intense and not painful, because our bodies are supposed to be doing what they're doing. So I don't think I could have done it if I didn't learn any of that. As far as the epidural goes, that didn't even cross my mind at all when I was giving birth. It wasn't an option for me. So I think being at home, that just didn't even cross my mind. Someone asked if I tore, and I did not tear. When my midwife checked and she told me that I didn't tear, I almost cried tears of joy, because that was like the worst part of postpartum recovery with my son. I think I had like 2 secondary tears with him, and it was the worst. And my recovery this time has been so much different. Somebody asked how long my labor was. In total, it was about 5 hours. Somebody asked what my due date was versus the arrival date. My due date was March 18th, and her arrival date was February 28th, which was actually my dad's birthday. So she came on my dad's birthday. Somebody asked, did you ever feel like at any point you couldn't do it or you felt scared about birth? I never felt any fear that whole time. And there was no point also that I felt like I couldn't do it. There was a point in pushing where I was pushing her head out and I didn't want to do it again. That's why I literally didn't allow myself to stop pushing until her head was out, because I didn't want to have to keep doing it. There was never a point where I felt like I couldn't do it throughout anything, but I just didn't want to push her head out again. So I got her head out really fast. Actually, she had bruising. It was normal, but bruising on her head because I pushed it out so fast. Somebody asked how hard it was. It's intense, but I truly feel like I'm the person that is like, I don't want to feel any pain whatsoever. And at the beginning of this pregnancy, it was like epidural, epidural, epidural. Like I literally was like tunnel vision to epidural. So if I can do it, honestly, anybody can do it. If you like prep yourself correctly and you really get in the right mindset, you can do it. All right, guys, so that is your questions. That is my birth story, a little Wilder Lennon. She is the sweetest girl in the whole entire world. I love her so much. I am going to be posting my birth vlog soon. I did vlog my whole birth, my husband did, so you guys will be seeing that soon. But I hope you enjoyed my birth story and be looking out for that birth vlog soon. Make sure to follow me on Instagram. I post a lot. I've been posting a lot about her on there and just kind of a little bit more about my life as a mom with 2. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.